Hey everybody, real quick before I get started, I want to tell you guys about something new that I'm trying out. I started a new Discord server. It's called One Mic. There is a link to the Discord in the episode description, and there will continue to be a link in the episode description for all subsequent videos. The reason I want to do this is because I wanted to give us all a space to collectively talk about all of the shows that I'm covering, so we don't have to talk across each other in the comments, or maybe miss some comments or miss some replies. I think it's a good place for us fans who are fans of the shows that I cover, fans of this channel, whatever that may be, for us all to get together and just kind of like talk about the show. So what I did was I created the server, and then I created channels within it for each show that I'm covering at that time. Right now it's set up to cover the, I think, 4 or so shows that I'm covering right now, and then I've added channels for shows I'm going to be covering in the month of December that I know for sure. And then as I'm covering shows will cycle in and out. So like once I'm done covering a show, a channel will be deleted, and then once I start covering a show, a new channel will be added. So check out that Discord. I look forward to talking to you guys, and now let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch it so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 7, the season finale of HBO's The White Lotus, entitled Arrivederci. Arrivederci stands for, it means until we meet again. It's not an acronym. I don't, it doesn't stand for nothing. It means until we meet again. And I don't think that's a fitting title, because this very much feels like we're going to get another season of this show. There's even like a little bit at the end of the episode, like an interview with Mike White, and he very almost directly says there's going to be a 3rd season, and he's already kind of got an idea for it. You know, this season's theme very much was sex, I think. And he says that next season he feels like he's probably going to go with a religious theme or death, something like that, or the combination of the two. I don't quite recall what he said, but it very much sounds like we're going to be revisiting this world yet again. So Arrivederci feels like a very fitting title for this finale. So I want to start by shouting myself out. You know, I put out a whole video full of theories of what was going to happen, and just shout out to me for being wrong on essentially every single one of them. But I don't give a fuck, because I think that the mistake that I and a lot of us made is that as it pertained to the murder mystery aspect, and just that, we operated from a place of how are these events of these first, say, 6 episodes, how are they going to lead us to how all of these people died, who these people are, who killed them, all that. We looked at this as, how is this going to lead us to the ending that results in multiple deaths? And even though I personally spent the entire season not even thinking about the murder mystery, it was still there to the point of like, okay, we're heading into the finale. Let's talk about what we think is going to happen with this murder mystery. And I think the murder mystery almost kind of exists as like a red herring to distract us from the character arcs. Not distract us, I'm sure he wants us to see these character arcs, but I think it's kind of, you know, it's a tool that's put in there, I think, to pull in audiences. But ultimately, nothing comes of it. Like, what matters? What matters about this death, really? These deaths, I should say. And I'll talk about them, but I think our mistake is we looked at it that way instead of just like, what is the natural conclusion to these character arcs? What is Mike White trying to say here about whatever theme he may be exploring? And now the season is over, and we've gone through 2 seasons of this show. I think it should be pretty clear to us by now how irrelevant the murder mystery aspect is. Because if you take that out of each of these seasons, does it impact your experience with the show? No, of course not. And how things ended with Tanya and the gays, like, I don't even really feel like, it just all feels so irrelevant, the like who died and why aspect of it. And all the stuff about sex and relationships and marriage and the decisions these characters made and the decisions they made through the lens of sex. Like, a lot of these characters made their decisions based upon sex, and what lessons did they learn from it. All that kind of stuff is way more interesting, and there's so much more meat on that bone than there is on the fucking who's gonna die and why bone. So, you know, if you watch this show for the murder mystery, you know, I feel like you're probably going to be disappointed. Like, how underwhelming, if you've been looking at this show as like, okay, everything you're seeing, you feel like it's clues as to who gets killed. So like, and I think this is the mistake I made in season 1, to the point where I almost want to watch season 1 again. But, you know, if you're looking at, let's say, well, actually, it doesn't even matter which specific one. If you're looking at this as every character and story arc as how does it lead to potentially someone dying. So if you're looking at Cameron and if you're looking at the couples and you're looking at their relationship, you just think like, okay, how is this going to result in maybe one of them killing the other or something like that? You're going to miss the true purpose of what we're being shown in this relationship. And then you're going to end up in a place at the end where you're like, did none of the four of them die? What the fuck is this? Like, you're going to feel ripped off. And it's because you're not focusing on what you're supposed to be focusing on. And I think, you know, to a degree that could hurt the reception of this show, which, I mean, clearly it hasn't, but it could, in that people could be disappointed in the murder mystery being underwhelming. But I think it has worked in that, you know, you look at all the accolades season 1 got. It just got nominated for a few Golden Globes earlier today. Audiences might miss some stuff, but I think even audiences are understanding now that the murder mystery is not where it's at, and we're supposed to be looking at these characters and these relationships. And I think if you do that and you watch for the character development and understand these people and these relationships, you're going to find this to have been a very satisfying finale, which I did. So let's talk about it. I mentioned a moment ago that we should be focused on the ideas that Mike Weiss trying to convey, and I think the very clear theme, as I've been saying so far this season, was sex. The relationship each of these characters had with it, how their experiences changed and or what they might have learned from their experiences as it pertains to sex, how they look at sex going forward, all of that kind of stuff I feel like was at play here. So I'm going to talk about this finale, as I always do, like in a character-by-character way, but just keeping in mind the theme of sex and looking at it through that lens and how I feel like it impacted the characters' actions and ultimately where they end up at the end of the season. So starting with the couples, which is my favorite place to start because I feel like the Cameron/Daphne and Ethan/Harper storyline is far and away the most compelling one that we got this season. And it was executed the best as well. And you know, this whole time, I look at this story arc as being about class. And I mentioned that, I think, in the first video. And to a large degree, it still is, very much so. But because I looked at it as being about class rather than sex, I saw it as like Cameron and Daphne versus Ethan and Harper. Like, Cameron and Daphne are like the seasoned rich couple. They've had money for a little bit. They're very entitled. They're accustomed to this way of life. They're very much detached from reality. And then you got Ethan and Harper, these newlyweds who are new into money, still very much grounded, still largely retain honorable core principles. And it looked like you were going to have like uppity, detached, rich couple versus, you know, newlyweds with new money who are still very much grounded. And I looked at it at that lens throughout most of the season, but, you know, I think at the time that was the right way to look at it. And I think we were meant to see it that way up to this point. But now, though, I see this as the story of how Ethan and Harper became Cameron and Daphne. And I think that's where we are right now, right? Like, Cam and Daphne mask their hurt that they've done to each other with sex. They're both fucking other people. And I think we even got confirmation of that in this episode, and confirmation that they both know that they're fucking other people. Because we see Cameron this season have sex with Mia and Lucia. We also have the scene where Daphne tells Harper to do whatever she has to do to feel better about whatever her husband's doing. And then she shows the pic of the trainer, and it ends up being a picture of her kids. And she's like, oops, I don't know how that got in there. And we were left to wonder, how do we interpret that? And I said in the video, like, I ran off like 3 options, one of which being like, is that supposed to be the trainer's kids? I think we got confirmation that it was, in fact, the trainer's kids, because I think it's like the second scene of the episode. She's on like FaceTime with the kids, and she's telling Cameron like, hey, come here, the kids want to talk to you. And he's flossing angrily. And then he gets done and he like grits his teeth like, I hate this fucking kid. And then like smiles and is all jovial. Cameron, hey buddy, how's it going? And that read to me very much like, I know that's not my fucking kid. Fuck that kid. I don't even like him. That's the trainer's fucking kid. And a living and breathing sign that Daphne cheated on me and had a baby with someone else. Hey, how's it going, little buddy? Like, that's what Cameron had to deal with. And, you know, now, what have Harper and Ethan become? They've become 2 people who mask the hurt they've done to each other with sex. I mean, that's how they end this situation. You know, after everything that they've dealt with, they end up having sex with each other. And, you know, even worse, I think, you know, they both likely fucked the corresponding person in the other couple, but both under false pretenses because of their own insecurities surrounding their sex lives. So, like, if you look at, well, before I get to that, I like that whether or not these individuals even had sex with each other. And when I say these individuals, I mean Cameron and Harper and Ethan and Daphne. Even though it's never explicitly stated or shown that they had sex with each other, I think it's pretty safe to assume they did just because it tracks thematically. You know, Harper probably fucked Cameron because she has hangups about their sex life. She believes Ethan is no longer attracted to her. And she believes that Ethan fucked Mia and Lucia, which we know that he did not. Ethan probably had sex with Daphne because he believes Harper fucked Cameron. And there's a possibility that none of those things happened, yet each of them may have fucked the person in the other couple because of it. You know, like did Ethan fuck Mia Lucia? No. Did Harper fuck Cameron? We don't know. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. Did Ethan fuck Daphne? I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. But if he did it because of something that maybe she did, maybe she didn't. And I like the fact that they ultimately ended up there because of their own insecurities and not because of anything that actually happened. Now, granted, it may have happened, but they don't know. So it doesn't really matter. Furthermore, we have Daphne almost kind of, I don't want to say she orchestrated this, but she gave the do what you got to do to feel better about it speech to both Harper and Ethan. And it just kind of feels like they being, I don't know why I struggle with these four names and pairing them up correctly. Cameron and Daphne, it feels like Daphne really did kind of essentially try to make them being Ethan and Harper. These names, man. And they're normal names, but it's like for some reason I struggle with the pairings. But it's like every time I talk about them, I gotta say four names, and I feel like I gotta group them correctly. But it feels like she orchestrated that. She gave them both shitty advice, and now they are gonna live a life just like Cameron and her, where they're gonna be fucking through all of the pain that they've caused each other. And I think that's a sad place to end their story, but a fitting place. And I think that's the important part, is that this is the fitting into their story, not Ethan kills Cameron or Cameron kills Ethan or somebody. Like, that's almost like a baser way of looking at these story arcs. But that's not how shit happens in real life. You don't get into a situation with another couple like this one and it ends in murder. That's not how life works. You just end up being fundamentally changed as a person or as a couple based upon those experiences. And this is more realistic. And I think that's why I feel like if you're hung up on the murder mystery, you're gonna find this finale and this show to be pretty dissatisfying. Moving on to the DeGrasso, and sticking with our sex theme here, look at how each of the DeGrasso men treat and view women and sex, both coming into this vacation and leaving from it. You know, Bert's very cavalier about his womanizing. He judges Dom for not being able to do what he was doing. You know, hey, she loves me and that's all that matters. See, I could do whatever I want. She'd always come back. Very cavalier about it, and very judgmental that Dom does not have the ability to cheat freely. And Dom has what seems to be a sex addiction that's caused this massive rift between him and the female members of his family. And then he gets to Sicily and continues to allow his dick to get him in trouble. Like, I still can't get over the idea of putting these two streetworkers or streetwalkers on his fucking hotel room account. But you know, he ends up showing remorse for his actions. You know, we see him looking longfully at this picture on his phone of his wife and his daughter and crying while he's looking at the pic. Ultimately, he tries to do what he thinks is best to mend that relationship, or to at least have Albie attempt to mend it for him. And then Albie has seen these two men in his life, his father and his grandfather, mistreat women. And he's heard Bert be very cavalier about it. He's seen Dom not be cavalier about it, but not necessarily be regretful about it as well. Just kind of like it's something he has no control over. And now Albie overcompensates by allowing sex to make him naive because he doesn't want to treat women like his father and his grandfather do. So he scoffs at being called a mark, which is exactly what the fuck he is. And now where do we end up? Albie, like I said, he is a mark. He grows up because he gets the money for Lucia from his father, quickly gives it to her, and then quickly learns that he's a stupid fucking idiot because he wakes up and she's gone. And there goes his naivete surrounding sex. Is this gonna happen again to Albie? No, he's learned his lesson. He got played, and now he understands. And we see that right away at the end of the episode. He seems to already be past it. He seems to already be ready to move on with Portia. And it's interesting that $50,000 or euros, which they couldn't figure out in that conversation, by the way. Like, Albie asked for 50,000 euros, and Dom says $50,000 multiple times. But that's believable. They're from America, whatever. But what point was I trying to make? Wow, I've completely lost the point that I was trying to make. Let's see. I was saying he gets the money from Lucia. Oh, he wakes up and realizes he's an idiot. Oh, and essentially he's also lost. It's interesting how the loss of $50,000 or euros had no impact on him. Like, he just kind of looked at it like, fuck, I got played. Like, anybody else would look at that as like, oh, it's $50,000. And it's like, the money is not a big deal. It's the fact that he just got played. I thought that was interesting as well. It just shows how little money matters to these people. And he says it directly to him. He's like, it's nothing to you. He's like, no, it's nothing to you because you don't work for it. But it's nothing to either of them. Bert doesn't seem to have changed at all. He's still talking about hugging Mia, making his dick hard, and he still seems upset. He still seems upset about what happened with that other DeGrasso family, and I just want to pose this question to you guys. What was the point of that whole story arc? Like, yes, it gets them there, but, like, if you remove everything having to do with them searching for, like, relatives there, if you took all of that out of the plot, does it change this story or these characters in any sort of way, really? I don't really know. I don't really quite grasp what the purpose of that is. I grasp it story-wise. Like, it gets them there, and then they go there. Things don't work out. They're a little bit arrogant about what they expected to encounter when they got there. It doesn't work. I get that. But throughout this theme, the season-long theme of sex and relationships and what these characters have learned from these sexual relationships and these encounters, what does that have to do with any of it? I don't know. But once Dom starts to do the right thing and cut himself off from Lucia and Mia and try to protect Albie, he does ultimately end up in a place where he can see a path to reconciliation. Albie says, you know, hey, I put in a good word with Mom. So he does seem to have essentially, he paid for it, his indiscretions in a literal sense, but because he seems to have learned the lesson from it, he seems to be on the right path to redemption. So ultimately, I think the DeGrasso men should have all learned a lesson about sex, but, well, not just about sex, but how they viewed it before this trip and how they view it now. But after all this, we see them eyeball old girl at the airport, all three of them, and we have to wonder, did any of them really change? And I kind of feel like I saw the whole process of them learning how to deal with women for them to ultimately have not learned shit, which is still very true to the male experience. So I'm not really mad about, like, if they didn't learn anything, I get it, because, I mean, that's real. Like, I feel like Albie learned in the moment, like, man, I got played by Lucia. I lost the 50 grand. I'm a sucker. I should have seen it coming. But if that woman at the airport had, like, looked at him and winked or something, he would have totally been, like, right back to square one. I believe that, and I find that to be perfectly plausible, and I'm not mad at it. But ultimately, I do feel like these three men, well, not Bert, Dom and Albie have essentially learned their lesson about sex, women, and how they should be dealing with women and treating women. I feel like they've learned that lesson, and that's again a proper ending to a character arc. So I'm happy with it. And then I want to talk about Tanya and the gays and Portia. I feel weird calling them the gays, but that's what they call them on the show. So, like, what am I supposed to do? Starting off with Portia, she learned a lesson, too, about not shitting on the good guy so you can get fucked by the bad guy. Like, that's really what she did, right? That's how you end up kidnapped, apparently. She had a good situation going for her. You know, she had this thing with Albie. It was good. It was wholesome. They could have had a good time, but she just looked at him as boring, and she wanted to be thrown around by some Italian guy. And she ended up being, to me, she was rude to Albie in a way that completely shifted how I viewed her. Like, I viewed her as like, oh, she's a perfectly fine character. She's got this decent relationship going with Albie. She's being mistreated by Tanya. That's not fair. Fuck Tanya for that. Fuck Tanya for treating her this way. But then the way she treated Albie, I'm like, well, yo, fuck her too. Fuck Portia too. Like, she's treating Albie like shit. She's flirting with Jack directly in front of where her and Albie were supposed to meet at. She was very dismissive and treating Albie very diminutively when he came to confront them. So, like, I didn't really have any kind of feelings for Portia. I'm like, yo, fuck her. Like, she shouldn't have treated Albie that way. And you know, she allowed the desire for sex to make her treat a good person who she had a good situation with poorly. And ultimately she ended up pushing him toward Lucia, which ultimately cost the DeGrassos $50,000. So really, how like it's very clear that Portia came in with the wrong ideas, I think. But you know, her reward was being kidnapped. So hey, I mean, you got what she got what she deserved. No, I'm kidding. She didn't deserve to be kidnapped, but. I have that in my notes. Does the punishment of being kidnapped fit the crime of being mean? No, it doesn't. But I've talked all season and all video about sex, and she allowed it to cause her to make poor moral decisions. And now she's probably learned from that since she exchanges numbers with Albie at the airport. So I think she's probably, you know, learned her lesson as well. But again, sticking with that theme, she allowed herself to treat a good person poorly because she just wanted to fuck Jack. And like, that's not a good look, man. What can I say? Let's see, where am I? Oh yes, Tanya and the gays. I feel like this was probably the most unsatisfying ending here. And I mean, it could be because this is the one thing that I got right. But yeah, it's pretty much the only place where all the theorizing paid off. It looks like we were right about Greg essentially hiring them to kill Tanya so he could get paid from the prenup, and then he could break them off some loot. I mean, it kind of a slam dunk once we saw the picture with Quentin and Greg in the last episode. But it's just that no one banked on ditzy-ass Tanya accidentally figuring out this scheme. You know, talk about putting two and two together. Tanya needed a scientific calculator to figure out what was happening here. Even after seeing a picture of Quentin and Greg together, and after seeing Jack clapping Quentin's cheeks, she still needed, like, Portia to kind of, like, tie this all together for her. But she got there, and, you know, I don't mind the character dying, but it was kind of a silly way to go. You know, like, okay, why were you trying to jump at the end of the boat? Why wouldn't you try to jump toward the middle? It's wider and it's closer to the boat. Why didn't you even try to jump? Why did you just fall off? Why didn't you take your heels off? Like, all of these things are stupid, but they fit Tanya's character. And, you know, I think it fits the tone that they've given Tanya's character throughout these first two seasons. So I'm not mad about it or anything, but I do feel like the Tanya storyline was the least interesting. It ended the least interesting way. I think it might have helped if maybe you pull Greg back into it somehow, but knowing what the plan was and how it played out, I don't really know how you fit Greg back into it. I just know that at the end of the day, the least satisfying story arc is the one that actually ended up with death, and all the ones that didn't were more interesting. And I think that speaks a great deal to the purpose of this show and what we're supposed to take away from it. And then lastly, I want to talk about Mia, Lucia, and Valentina. Lucia and Mia end up exactly where they even foreshadowed that they would end up. Lucia seems to have used sex to have successfully pulled off this scam with Alessio to the tune of $50K plus the money that Cameron owed her, which he pays up on in this episode. And then Mia said that she enjoyed being able to use sex to get what she wanted in a very overt kind of way. And she does seem to have parlayed sex into a job at this resort, playing this music and getting the piano guy fired. And in a way, Mia kind of became Lucia. Like, just like Lucia used to have sex used sex to get what she wanted out of Albie, Mia did the same thing with Valentina. And, Valentina had a season, I think, of self-discovery as well, in which her misinterpretation of Isabella's situation just showed how little she understood heterosexual relationships. She read that all wrong, and then she reads Mia wrong too, just as Albie did with Lucia, and ends up being hustled just like Albie was with Lucia. And she ends up firing the piano player for no good reason and offering Mia the job, even though Mia straight up tells her, like, yo, just FYI, I'm not a real lesbian. You might need a real lesbian to have sex with. We can still hang. And, it's kind of like what I said last week. I'm like, it's going to be weird. Or what I said in the theory video, it's going to be weird for her when Mia asks for payment after the sex. Even though I'm technically wrong, I'm still right. She just didn't have to ask for it. She got the payment for the sex. And then she very much turned the situation from a romantic one into a cordial one, to a more platonic one. And she very deftly did that. Like, oh yeah, I can still hang. That'd be great. You should find an actual real lesbian to have sex with. But yeah, we can still hang. That's cool. So like, it is kind of what I said. Like, I feel like I'm still kind of right about this as far as how that ended up. And I'm obviously wrong about Valentina dying, but she did very much do what Lucia did. So wrapping up with a couple of quick thoughts. I thought so it wasn't for the hat line from Ethan to Harper during their argument was good because it showed, like, in the argument up to that point, Harper was very reliant on the fact that she hasn't lied. And him pointing out that she texted and saying she was going upstairs for the hat shows that, one, she did lie, and two, that she went up there with intent, and with intent that had nothing to do with the hat. So it does show that she went up there with the purpose of fucking Cameron, or doing something with Cameron. And then I also thought Ethan did way too much after this conversation. When he goes to find Cameron, he did way too much talking and pushing. That's the kind of violation. We don't even need to have a conversation. I'm snuffing you on sight, and then when you wake up, we could talk about why I did it. Like, I don't like all that talking and pushing. He should have hit that mother. Like, there shouldn't even been any words spoke. He should have gotten the water, stole on him, and then if he didn't drown once he woke up, you could be like, all right, this is why I fucked you up. That conversation was just so unnecessary. The way Cameron and Daphne had no qualms about eating with Ethan and Harper on the last day was such an interesting decision to me. Like, again, working under the assumption that the sex happened, Cameron, at the very least, kissed Harper, probably fucked her, got his ass beat over it, and he's the one that's like, oh, hey, guys, let's all have dinner. How could you have dinner without us on the last... Like, pretends like nothing happened. And I think that is these people's lives, though. Doing shitty things behind closed doors and then openly pretending, even with people who are involved in what happened behind closed doors, that it never happened. Daphne's sitting there doing the same thing. They're having a casual dinner, and Ethan and Harper are just sitting there like, yo, what the fuck? Like, Ethan's probably sitting there like, I just fucked Daphne 45 minutes ago, and now they're sitting here pretending like nothing happened. And Harper is like, I just lied about fucking Cameron 45 minutes ago, and here they are pretending like nothing happened. And I just thought that was interesting that I think now Ethan and Harper are coming to understand what life is like when you live in this class and in this system, that these people can do this dirt behind closed doors, and everybody that they did the dirt with is there outside of the closed doors, all collectively pretending like what happened on the other side of the door didn't happen. And it's just, it's a unique behavior. And again, it speaks to why I find these characters to almost be comically implausible, and that's why I don't think I connect with the show fully. But I will say that I thought this season was better than season one, although I do kind of feel like I need to watch season one again. And I do think this was a very strong season of television. And I think if you can not focus on who's gonna die and focus on these relationships and these themes in this season surrounding sex and how these people came to this place, what their views on sex were and relationships were when they got there versus how they are when they leave, and the path that it took for them to get there, I think you're going to find a very satisfying experience, and you don't need to worry about who killed who and whatnot. It's irrelevant. So that's what I thought about the finale. That's what I thought about this season. Let me know what you thought about in the comments. I will be back to cover this show for season 3 should it happen, and I will also be releasing a future state video letting you guys know what to expect on this channel to close out the year and to start 2023. And until then, peace.